Hello! World War II took many lives and shattered millions of destinies, including those of children. But even in grief, not all fates are the same, and some stand out, perhaps by luck, or maybe by the special qualities of a person, even if he is still very young. This story is about that kind of fate. A boy named Siroja is sitting high up in a tree. He boasts about it to his mother, who is washing laundry in the river, and to his older brother, who is fishing. All of a sudden, an enemy plane appears in the sky, and the mother yells for her sons to take cover. But the boy declares that he is not afraid and loads his slingshot with a pine cone. With the next shot, he shoots down another fighter plane too. Siroja rejoices and calls for his mother and brother, but for some reason they are no longer around. After all, it was only a dream, and the boy is now being woken up by his neighbor, who convinces him to run away with her, as his relatives have been accused of helping partisans and killed. Sergei will face the same fate if he is found. They are chased by men with submachine guns, and not having time to get out of the house, the woman throws the boy out the window and gets shot to death. Siroja runs away from the gunshots and blazing houses into the woods. The 6-year-old boy wanders among the trees in the darkness, lost and frightened. He can't believe that his mother is dead. In the forest, he gets completely lost. In the morning, he quenches his thirst on the bank of a river, where he has to hide from enemy soldiers who are taking a break nearby. But even here, in the small shelter in the roots of the tree, danger awaits him. A snake appears. Barely able to cope with fear, Siroja manages not to scream and thus survives. The boy picks up the remains of the German's food to satisfy at least some of his hunger. Exhausted, he walks on, bogging down in the swamps. Loud artillery shots terrify the child, and at night he sees creatures in the woods, to whom he tries to prove he is not afraid. Only in dreams can he find comfort. In them, his mother pours him and his brother fresh milk. Siroja's strength is running out, so he can only doze in exhaustion. Already half-conscious, he asks the hedgehog that is scurrying nearby to bring him help. At the last moment, he is found by Soviet soldiers. The scouts cannot leave the child to die in the woods, so they abandon their mission, sparking the commander's anger. The frozen boy is brought into a tent, and the commander with a wounded hand introduces himself. Nikolai Sergeyevich Kuznetsov.
Не бойся ты у своих.
Siroja answers the soldiers' questions, and they understand that he has nowhere to go. He is an orphan now. Then the cook brings hot food, and the men try to surround the boy with care and attention. The next day, the soldiers are sitting outside, chatting and joking. Andrei, the scout who found the boy, is learning German, while the tailor, Yakov Moisevich, is patching his uniform. Among them, we also meet the orderly Rizo and the old Yegor Maximovich. The jokes end when an attack by enemy troops interrupts their dialogue. At the aid post, Aunt Katya tends to Siroja's wounds and feeds him the dishes of the fat chef, Petrovich. The boy asks about Commander Kuznetsov and wants to learn as much as he can about his medals and fearlessness. Siroja has been surrounded by war, enemies, and the death of his loved ones since his early childhood. So what worries him most is how to become a man, a strong and fearless defender. While Andrei and the nurses bring the goat they found on the road to the regiment, Kuznetsov visits the boy and feels how attached he is to him. The boy sees him as a father figure and an example to follow. Siroja asked Andrei to show him the medal for bravery and his personal pistol, but even a perfect man like him doesn't have everything.
Вот самолета у меня нет.
The nurse asks the commander to keep the boy and not send him from the front line to some orphanage. She's willing to take responsibility for him, just like everyone else in the regiment. The commander does not like the idea.
Ребенку здесь не место.
Здесь никому не место.
The nurses are filling out paperwork and discussing Siroja's future. Katya fears that if he is sent to the rear now, she will never find him. The second nurse, Rita, calls Kuznetsov a stubborn man in uniform who will never break the rules. The soldiers also became attached to the boy, and on behalf of all of them, Yegor Maximovich asked the commander to keep him. For the regiment, he is the symbol of what they are fighting for, their children waiting at home. All the civilians the soldiers are protecting by sacrificing themselves. But the commander displays his care in a different way and understands that it is extremely dangerous for the boy to be here, so he remains undeterred. The fighting continues. Katya, under heavy gun and tank fire, is dragging a wounded soldier out of a trench. Kuznetsov, despite his injured arm, leads his squad on the offensive, covering the retreat of the wounded. The battle is over, and Seroja has recovered and is already walking around the camp. Meanwhile, a car arrives to send the boy to the rear. On parting, the commander gives him a wood-carved pistol as a memento. Seroja says that he was worrying about Nikolai and waiting for him to return.
Ты знаешь, брат, похоже, кроме тебя меня никто и не ждет.
The major can't bring himself to act by the book after all, and asks the boy if he would like to be adopted by him. The excited soldiers no longer know how else to express their affection, and argue loudly about what size uniform to sew for Seroja in Yakov Moisevich's workshop. The boy, in turn, keeps dreaming about a peaceful life and his mother. He moves from the infirmary to the commander's tent. Kuznetsov wakes him up to give him a real military uniform and teaches him how to dress like a soldier. One must get dressed while a matchstick is burning. The regiment comes under another enemy air raid, and Seroja finds himself in the midst of the chaos of war. The boy runs among the wounded, not knowing where to go, and is very afraid of losing the people who have become dear to him. The field medic gets angry at the boy for unnecessary panic and teaches him that all is needed now is to believe in victory and to help in any way he can. The boy follows his instruction and takes on the task of delivering water to the wounded in the infirmary. One of them, with damaged eyes, asks him to read a letter from the rear. It turns out that Seroja can't read, so he begins to make things up as he goes along, which really amuses the soldiers, and then sings them a song. After the fight, Katya comforts the boy and puts him to sleep on her lap. Kuznetsov approaches them.
Катя, я давно хотел.
Then Seroja wakes up at the most inconvenient moment. He is only interested in whether his enemies have been defeated. He already calls Kuznetsov nothing but daddy. Seroja talks about his successes in fighting fear and wants to be a real assistant to the commander, an orderly. The boy understands that in war, everyone is valued for their skills and asks who to thank for the uniform. They approach the destroyed tent of Yakov Moisevich.
На войне, сынок, надо еще успеть сказать спасибо.
Seroja continues to imitate the adults. He shaves and trains to salute. He receives his first real assignment from the commander, mail delivery to the battalions. All the soldiers are very happy to receive letters from the rear. The letter carrier teaches the boy one of their traditions, the Baranya dance, which must be danced by the soldier who receives the letter. One day, the boy goes out of camp to the river and gets carried away observing the nearest clearing with binoculars. He discovers someone's foot in a haystack and rushes to tell Andrei about it. He even convinces the scouts to go with him. Kuznetsov and the driver in the car pick up Katya and Rita, who were picking berries, on their way. Rita, flirting, asks the commander who is waiting for him at home. But Kuznetsov explains that he is not married. The three scouts go to the haystack, set it on fire, and thus smoke out the two enemy gunners, who are taken prisoner. Seroja continues to deliver the letters, and is sad when it turns out that not all the soldiers return from their missions to dance and rejoice. Seroja's achievements begin to be noticed, and he can't wait to get his real weapon and rank. The official permission for adoption arrives, which means that the boy will stay in the regiment for sure. Nikolai and Seroja go to tell Katya the good news. They find the girl by the river, but it turns out they're not the only ones looking for her.
Катенька, это вам.
The girl does not accept the soldiers' advances and is saved from unnecessary attention by Seroja, who runs up to her. But Major Kuznetsov, watching from a distance, does not dare to approach them and goes back. During another battle, Seroja bravely carries ammunition into the trenches under enemy fire. Yegor Masimovich worries about him and asks him to take shelter in the commander's dugout. The boy refuses, and only the order of his senior officer works on him. Seroja reluctantly obeys it and observes the battle from the dugout. Communication with one of the squads is cut off, and Kuznetsov orders the radio operator to restore it. Seroja, wanting to be useful, takes on the task as well, without telling anyone. He finds the wire and crawls out of the trench to the artillery hole. He learns from the wounded soldier how to properly connect the wires and repairs the broken line. Seroja and one of the soldiers are sitting together after the battle, looking at the stars. In the Great and Little Bear constellations, the boy sees a mother and her daughter, but where is the father? Fearlessness and defeating his enemies is now not the only thing the boy is worried about. How do people get married and fall in love? What is love?
Иногда это как радость, как счастье. Иногда одни страдания, как болезни.
Seroja remembers this phrase, and the next day he runs to Katya, screaming that his father is very sick. She leaves her chores and rushes to help. but finds Nikolai sleeping peacefully without any complaints. The boy went so far as to lie so that the adults would finally confess their feelings to each other, which are so obvious to him. But here too, Nikolai can't find anything to say. Katya runs away, but Kuznetsov immediately rushes after her. Instructor Kolya arrives at the regiment with service dogs, which Sorosha likes very much. The dogs are trained to help soldiers with first aid on the battlefield, to keep the wounded awake, and to bring bandages. The boy asks to go for a ride in the dog sled, but the dogs start chasing a cat and carry him right into a minefield. Rizzo, on his motorcycle, manages to block the path of the dogs at the very last moment and saves Sorosha. Kuznetsov, in turn, manages to catch up with Katya. He is hesitant and anxious again. On the battlefield, he is confident and resolute, but in front of her, he is fumbling with words like a child. Eventually, he still manages to say something.
Будьте мне Сережиной мамой.
They are interrupted again. The major receives orders that it's time for them to change positions and they must take off tomorrow. The soldiers are marching along a country road. On the way, they stop in a village and stay at a local house. Sorosha finally meets his peers, and the owner of the house tells them in a casual way that a hole in the kitchen floor was left by a German air bomb, which penetrated through the roof and floor.
Так она сейчас там?
Ну а где же ей быть?
Everyone quickly runs out into the street, while Kuznetsov orders to bring in the sappers. The bomb is taken out of the house. Having regained strength and dealt with the shell, the regiment moves on, when suddenly the convoy collides with a mine. Sorosha is thrown out of the car, but fortunately, he is not wounded, which cannot be said for Rizzo, for whom the war is now over. The regiment joins with the rest of the army, and Sorosha and Nikolai find themselves at an audience with the general. The boy asks for another assignment, and he is sent to the 2nd Squadron to check the uniforms. There, the soldiers do not take him seriously. He is offered tea and chocolate instead of boring assignments, but the boy shows willpower and refuses the treats. The 2nd Squadron lines up for the equipment check. Sorosha cannot write, so the quick-witted boy asks an officer to make him a list with the names of the soldiers who have torn boots. The general is pleased, and Sorosha again does not miss the chance to arrange his father's personal life.
Дайте ваше генеральское разрешение на пожениться моему папе и нашей Кате.
The division is awarded the title of Guards Division, and Sorosha dreams of personally receiving a medal. He walks along the formation and sees the soldiers who have become his friends, both dead and alive. Andrei, who found him, the kind Rizzo, Yakov Moisevich, and the others. And they are all proud of him. Once again, his dreams are interrupted by the harsh reality. He and Nikolai come under direct air fire. While Sorosha hides in the pit, the commander is pelted with debris in the dugout. The boy tries to move the heavy logs, but alas, in vain. He rushes to look for help and finds soldiers who hurry to the rescue of their commander. Nikolai is badly wounded, but is still saved. Katya takes care of him in the hospital, and Sorosha comes to visit him. Nikolai encourages the child as best he can, again saying that men do not cry. But the boy cannot hold back his tears at the sight of the major, who has become his real father. This story is based on real-life events in the life of 6-year-old Sergei Aleshkov, who took part in the Battle of Stalingrad, reached Poland with his regiment, and was awarded the Medal for Combat Service. As always, you can find the name of the movie in the video description. Do you know other similar stories of children who had to become adults too early, but handled the role with dignity nonetheless? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and click the bell so you don't miss the next exciting story.